You're welcome back. So let's begin with Dr. Randy Abbey. You say the situation is where we have beans, but they are not buying. The beans are too expensive. How did we get here?
Thank you very much, Samson, and a very comprehensive analysis by Isaac. Isaac should add one more slide, and I think that will tell the story fully, which will be a slide on the world market prices over the period. You know, he did one on the producer price,
right,
and showed that. But if you, and then explain the drop from 25 to 26. Now, if you have one which also deals with the world market price, that will also tell you that you have an unprecedented situation of the farm gate prices dropping, because there's also an unprecedented situation of the world market price also dropping sharply. And I think that will just fully tell the story.
All right, Kofi, yeah. So that's feedback for you.
Yes. Now, we are where we are because our bean is not competitive, the price of our bean, as compared to other origins. And you also have a buyer-funded model.
Our beans is more expensive.
Yes.
Comparatively.
And the gap is too wide. And it's the reason why you have a situation where there are complaints that we've given beans, they've not been bought. We have beans, they are not buying, yet there's no smuggling. Last year, you didn't have a situation of we have supplied beans, they've not been bought. We have beans, they are not buying. Yet there was massive smuggling. Almost on a daily basis, we had arrests or reports of smuggling, to the extent that we even had national security meetings on smuggling just last year, because we were paying $3,100, and if you go to places like Togo, who operate close to the price on the terminal, they were operating 6,000 and upwards. And so you had a situation where there were merchants who were actually coming onto the farms to even buy from the farmers, and the farmers didn't even need to smuggle the good themselves. These people will come
because they were paying us almost twice as much.
Yes. And so, although last year you didn't find the situation of there's no money to buy the crop, we have given our bean, it's not been sold, we had massive smuggling. But this year, you do not have incidents of smuggling, even when you have situation of farmers saying that I gave my bean, I've not been paid, we have beans, they are not buying. And I will use the story of Volta and OT to illustrate this point. For the entire 24-25 season, Volta and OT contributed 97 tons to the 590-something thousand, almost 600,000 tons that we made for 24-25. This year, as of December, Volta and OT had contributed 2,500 tons. And you hear a lot of complaints just by close of December, about 2,500 tons. From the same area, that contributed just 97 tons. And so it is really a pricing issue. And that is why even in this situation, we needed to be careful with the decision that we took, because we also needed to have our eye on reverse smuggling. You go trying to solve a problem, and before you realize, you think that you're solving a 70,000 ton problem, only to have 400,000 tons of cocoa arrive in your country. We know what is happening everywhere around us. There are countries that have not announced a reduction, but we know what is happening on the ground.
Explain the reverse smuggling again.
Reverse smuggling simply means, first of all, for all the communities that are along the border, it's trite knowledge that they operate in two markets. So they look at which market is favorable to them. Beyond them, as I gave the story of Volta and OT to illustrate the point, you know, they look at what the conditions are. And that is why we always look at Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire pricing, because the research shows that anytime there is a gap of more than $400, the incidence of smuggling is very high. That's per ton. The incidence of smuggling is very high. And so you try to ensure that to deal with smuggling, you do not have that gap. Because when it is below that, you do not have an incentive to smuggle, especially in large quantities.
Right.
And so when you have that huge difference where you're paying 3,100 and the spot price is in excess of $6,000, $7,000, then the motivation is there. And that's why I said people will even come to the farms, give the farmers 4, 5, 5,000, and the farmers didn't even need to take the risk of smuggling. It was enough good business for others to decide to then.
Playing for your country, easy. Scoring, easy. Winning, easy. You will be easy now. Keep 4 in 1 Gary mix.
Of over 1,000 US dollars, or even 2,000 US dollars in some instances. And therefore, there is no motivation, for smuggling. But the reverse smuggling would then mean that if you continue to pay, and why we didn't have the reverse smuggling, although the amount was there, was that there was no liquidity. So even those who intend to smuggle know that Ghana is not buying. But immediately Ghana starts buying, and starts buying at that rate, there will be the motivation for those around us to then bring in a lot of the cocoa. We all know what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire. I'm sure that in your research you would have seen the farmers in Cote d'Ivoire complaining. There's an EU24 interview, Euronews 24 interview of farmers talking about their produce rotting away on their farms and their warehouses and all that. Now, in a situation where Ghana has liquidity and is buying, and the price is at that level, there will be an incentive to smuggle. So that's why I said that if you're not careful, you might think that you're solving a 70,000 ton problem, only to be confronted with a 400,000, sorry, a 400,000, 500,000 ton problem, which is then going to mess up your loss situation completely.
Just a quick side issue. Yeah. From what you're saying, I get a revelation that where, say, Cote d'Ivoire is doing 2 million, and we are struggling to get to 1 million, even though we have done that before. I remember Kufuor's regime when we got to that point, and there was celebration that greeted it. So it's not exactly the case that what we record has been what we produce, because you have to discount what may have been smuggled.
Yes. So I'll give you an example. For 23-24, COCOBOD projected a crop of 800,000. At the end of the season, COCOBOD had done 438,000. And that's the situation that led to the rollover of about 333,000 tons. Now, something significant happened. And that was the year that the syndicated loan collapsed after 32 years. Now, for the first time, the season opened in September. The first tranche of the syndicated loan hit COCOBOD's account on the 22nd of December. According to Licobag at their press conference, the first time they received money was January 26 of 2024. So what it meant was that the season opened in September, and if I just give a little explanation so that people then appreciate this. Under the syndicated loan regime, COCOBOD will then make a projection of its crop output, and then also a projection of the price. And then on the basis of that, COCOBOD would then give a mandate to the cocoa marketing company to go and sign contracts on the basis of how much COCOBOD expects to spend in purchasing the crop. So let's say COCOBOD makes a projection of 600,000 with a price of 5,000. And so they ask CMC to say, go and sign contracts of 500,000. 500,000, not less than $5,000. So they go sign this. And COCOBOD needs, let's say, $1.8 billion. And the financing cost of maybe some 120 million. So CMC will sign these contracts, 500,000 tons with international buyers at not less than $5,000. These contracts are what COCOBOD sends to the consortium of banks, the syndicated banks, as collateral. So this is raw beans contract. So COCOBOD commits to supply 500,000 of its expected 600,000 outputs, raw beans, to these suppliers, who then have signed a contract to buy the beans at this price. Now, once the banks receive this, they then, on the basis of that, look, we have a 2.5 billion CD collateral, dollar collateral. COCOBOD needs 1.8 billion plus a financing cost is less, 1.92 billion. So we'll release the money on agreed tranches. This money comes to the central bank. The central bank gives COCOBOD, the cedi equivalent, Bank of Ghana rate. Then out of this money received by COCOBOD, COCOBOD then gives what is called seed fund to the license buying companies. So the license buying companies then use these seed funds to buy the cocoa from the farmers on behalf of COCOBOD. Now you had a situation where in 23-24, the season opened in September. September, October, November, December, the LBCs had not been given any seed fund to buy the bean. Now, this is at the peak of your main crop season. What do you think would have happened during this period? For all this period. So some of the LBCs had to by themselves go and take loans to try and go on the market and all that. But the seed fund that usually is given to this LBCs maybe by mid-September or third week in September to go and buy the crop on behalf of COCOBOD was not available. In a situation like that, you shouldn't be surprised if there is smuggling.
There's the suggestion that you could have preempted something sometime in November in 2025.
All right, so you see, when you discuss this issue without factoring in the funding model, then you miss it. You see, I've heard people speak about forward sale and all those things. Now, look, Samson, if you project to do 650,000, and by the time we go to where we were, you are done 581,000. By let's say first week in January, 581,000. That's by 82%. So where is that argument coming from? I hear people say that, oh, you do forward and you forward sell about 70% and all that. By the time that we got into this situation, COCOBOD had taken over 581. 530,000 of that had contracts. 530,000 of that had contracts. So the 5,040 that was promised the farmers, you had a commitment on 581,000 of your projected 650,000. So where's the argument coming from? That they were only doing spot pricing. In fact, some of the 25-26 were forward sold in 24-25. Some of them were forward sold in 24-25 during the 24-25 season. So the issue about they should have done forward sale and they changed it and all that. Now, mind you see, under the syndicated loan regime, you are bound to find contracts for the sale of the raw bean to collateralize the loan. So you sign these contracts and present these contracts to the consortium of banks as collateral for the advancement of the syndicated loan. Now, when this collapsed and we had this buyer's model, it is now the buyers who place the orders. And then it's the buyers who provide part of the funding for the purchase of the bean. So you are only liquid, or you only have liquidity when the buyers advance money to you. Under the syndicated loan scheme, you've done the thing, you have agreed on intervals for the money to come. Those monies come in, you have control over your money. You take the money from the Bank of Ghana, you give seed fund for the LBCs to go and buy on your behalf. Under this model, which started from 24-25, it is the buyers who then make an order. I want 50,000 tons. And they make a declaration, maybe says that, I would want it in November. And then they will give you 80%. It was 60% in 24-25 because the farmer share was about 63.9. When the farmer share moved to 70 on the basis of the NDC's manifesto, then it had to move to 80 because the 60 will not be enough to even buy the bean from the farmer. So it is the buyers who then provide the liquidity for you at every point in time that they make an order for you to be able to give that to the LBCs to go and buy. So at the point when the buyers decided that, look, your beans were too expensive for them, and they had many other origins to buy from, you have a liquidity problem. But I'm saying that at this point, we are done about 82% of our projection. But once the buyers move from your market and they are not purchasing, you do not have the liquidity because they are funding the purchase of the crop. And that is the situation that we found ourselves in.
Okay. So, to you guys relax a bit for me. Let me get to the farmer and return to you guys again on the proposed solutions, including getting into the bond market. So let's hear you first, Inusa.
I think that this issue is not a 2025 issue.
Am I right to think that from what Michael is suggesting, it is not really the case that Randy's regime, they were cautious because of the previous, loss from the forest sale. So they were cautious not to do a similar thing.
Let me just, because of what you said, let me just chip in some. That thing they did was under the syndication.
Syndication.
Where you had to forward sell in accordance with what you expect to raise to buy the crop. So you push an output of 800,000, you go and sign contracts for 786,000 because of what you expect to raise. As to whether your projection was founded or not founded, we can't tell. Do you understand what I'm saying? But for the first time in the history of COCOBOD, you have a crop forecast that goes off by 45%. Okay. And that was under the syndication, the last time that a syndication loan was raised and it collapsed.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So as somebody who studies the market and also look at the activities of COCOBOD over the years, this problem of COCOBOD that has manifested did not start today. You remember the 2024 campaign? I saw you in that meeting where the vice president was asked a pointed question whether COCOBOD was crashing.
He refused to answer.
He refused to answer.
Yeah.
It's not a new problem.
A journalist had asked the question that COCOBOD was collapsing.
Collapsing.
And he said he didn't know where he was coming with his facts. He didn't know about it. He won't answer it.
Yeah. But now, it was a good position then.
Okay.
It was a what?
It was a good position because for any company.
The vice president saying that it's a good
position. But now looking back, it sounds to me that people had
picked the signals
of a situation at the time.
Possibly,
people had picked the signals.
He didn't have the figures then.
All right.
And for any institution, you look at both revenues and everything before you determine whether it's going.
Okay. Let's hear.
So what I'm saying is that people had picked the signals.
But when you decide to, when your cocoa bills in 2023, it becomes part of DDEP, and you decide to reschedule that debt, what is the signal you're sending out? The signal is that you're broke. When Ghana declared DDEP, what happened to Ghana?
But then it's not only that.
What happened to Ghana?
You must also look at, so first of all, we must all understand that people picked credible signals that COCOBOD was collapsing in 2024. Credible. And the projection they just made, you can see 2023, 2024, what happened. You can see clearly that COCOBOD raked up heavy debts in those years. You can see it. Two, you also have to understand that because of what happened, the failure, refusal, or neglect to deliver by contract affected the confidence of buyers. So they were not now ready to pre-finance the buying of the cocoa beans. That was why a new funding model came into being. That shook the market and destroyed the confidence of those who had provided stable capital. Okay? Now, you combine it with and for 8 years, I was in parliament for 4 of those 8 years of the NPP. The administrative costs of COCOBOD continuously kept rising. Anytime they took the syndicated loan, they spent a heavy part of the syndicated loan on themselves, on administration. We raised red flags that this model was not sustainable. You go and look at the cocoa rows, the amount of money in that period that was spent on cocoa rows. Then you ask yourself, what model was that? How can you rake in that debt and still think that an institution, a trading institution like COCOBOD will survive? Now, if you enter into a delivery contract, fail to deliver the quantities, the obligation under that contract, you're not excused of that obligation. Yeah. You're not excused. Yeah. So you had forward sold. Yeah. And so when you fail, and there's a rollover, you are still obligated to supply at the amount. Because the failure to supply was not because the buyers refused to take, but because you couldn't supply.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, and you know that we would have stood to benefit if in the succeeding years, cocoa prices dropped to a level below 2,600.
Yeah.
We would have benefited.
Yeah.
So we would lose if cocoa prices went beyond. I mean, if cocoa prices had fallen beyond,
and they did, they went up. So
if cocoa prices,
why we are
if cocoa prices had fallen below, I'm sure today Randy would not be sitting here claiming that. They will say that it is because they were visionary. They saw it from afar and that cocoa prices will plummet, and so they sold at. So you must be prepared to say that, look, that action of failure to deliver, not failure to enter, into a contract, but failure to deliver the excess 333 tons is probably responsible for our present situation. You must understand that. Because if that had been delivered, now we will hold the present management of COCOBOD responsible for not entering into a forward contract in a manner that brought revenue. So that is a prudential decision they took, the reduction of the price of cocoa to reflect the situation at COCOBOD and also world market prices. Because it's a prudential decision.
But Michael raises a point, or the minority raises a point, Kojo Nkrumah championing that, that there are times when the windfall, the cocoa farmer doesn't get to benefit from the windfall. So in a situation where, because of your marketing and hedging skills, you may have missed a plot, the prices have gone down, don't let the cocoa farmer suffer. He says, you take that cushion. Government should give them that cushion.
No, that would be a reckless decision. The cocoa farmer is also in a business. Okay? He understands the up and downs of the cocoa trade. He understands it. Now,
he's in a business where he doesn't have a say.
No,
right? He doesn't have a say.
No, what I'm saying is that
you understand.
Anybody who is a producer will say that, well, me, I don't care. You have to give me the benefit. But I'm saying that you must understand the remits of the business. That look, if the prices were favorable in other jurisdictions, you would have seen them trying to smuggle the crop.
But there's no free market. It's like your gold ball situation. Whoever produces gold, this is the only place you can sell it, and at this price.
Yes.
So they don't have the option. They don't determine where in the market we go. You are the one controlling everything and determining how it ought to be sold. So that's why you should cushion them when at times you have benefited and at certain times it has gone bad. I'm